Are you still looking for help at the wide receiver position for fantasy football? I've got my top 5 waiver wire pickups heading into week 12 to help you get an edge to win. So let's start with number 5. And I'm going to go with a guy who didn't even play this past week. But if you don't know, Cole Beasley has been a top 40 fantasy wide receiver this season, bordering on wide receiver 3 territory. It has been a little volatile. He's had 300-yard games, but he's also had some duds in there. So you're never quite sure what to get. But one thing that you'll know is that when John Brown is out of the lineup, he becomes a lot more valuable. And Brown this past game did have a bit of an ankle injury. Not sure what's going to happen heading into this week, but Beasley is definitely somebody to keep an eye for and worth a pickup because he has actually a pretty nice schedule down the stretch. So again, we have to look ahead towards the fantasy playoffs, and he's got a couple nice matchups, especially in week 15 and 16. So Beasley is definitely somebody you can pick up in PPR leagues, especially. Okay, my number 4 pickup at wide receiver is going to be another guy who did come back and play this week, but had been gone for 7 weeks and didn't do a whole lot. But Alan Lazard is a player I've been high on all season long. You saw what he did to start the season. They're going to ease him back into action naturally, and you saw that with just 2 catches in week 11. But the good news is that he is back. All right, he's on the field. He looked pretty good. He looked healthy. It was a tough matchup against the Colts. Unfortunately, it's another bad matchup going into week 12 against the Bears, really tough against wide receivers. So I wouldn't go out and start him, right? But this is the time to grab him before other people in your league take a look. They haven't already. I've been mentioning him the last couple of weeks as somebody to keep an eye on, maybe to stash. And this is the time to get him. This is your last chance. Okay, so again, don't have too high hopes for the short term. But again, looking ahead to the fantasy playoffs, definitely somebody that could help you out. Okay, my number 3 pick at wide receiver is going to be Curtis Samuel, and you've seen what he's done lately. Of course, last week, talking about week 10, when we thought he would smash, and he absolutely did not, didn't do anything. And then this week with a backup quarterback, of course, he should have been started in all leagues. It's hard to tell what's happening in that Panthers wide receiver group because it keeps fluctuating back and forth. We don't know who's going to be the lead. Robbie Anderson had taken over as the number 1 wide receiver. Now it looks like he's falling behind. Maybe he is the number 3 guy. Who knows from week to week? But what we do know is that Samuel has been involved. He did lead the team in receptions, not yardage, but receptions with Phillip Walker at quarterback. Don't know who the quarterback's going to be, honestly, in week 12 because Teddy Bridgewater, you got to think he's going to come back. He was kind of a late scratch. They kind of had concern, thought he might play, and then he tested it out, and they just, err on the side of caution, which is what the Panthers tend to do. So probably will be Bridgewater in week 12, but even so, we've seen that with Walker in there. Curtis Samuel did just fine. The passing game didn't really miss a beat. So you've got to like his chances, especially against that Minnesota bottom 10 pass defense. And then number 2 at wide receiver, going to go with the guy I've been talking about. He was at the top of my pack last week. Jalen Reagor. I know, again, wasn't monster numbers, but that actually works in your favor because probably not going to have to spend too much to pick him up if he is available in your league. 4 catches for 52 yards. But you know what? He is the lead receiver there now. Travis Fulgham did, again, absolutely nothing. This is 2 weeks in a row of Fulgham with just a catch and barely caught any of the targets that went his way. Fulgham is basically droppable at this point. It was a nice little run while it lasted, but Reagor is the number 1 receiver. I know a lot of people are just off of Carson Wentz and that whole Eagles offense, but you can't be. He's still a decent quarterback. He hasn't looked good. It's been a rough stretch, but this matchup absolutely begs you to start a wide receiver, and Reagor is the one. It's the Seattle Seahawks defense. That's right, the one that's been giving up historically high amount of yardage to wide receivers. So Reagor is almost a must start, really, unless you happen to have a whole lot of better options at wide receiver. Reagor is a must add now, and they've got a pretty nice schedule down the stretch too. So again, this is a good time to add Reagor. But for number 1 this week, I'm going to go with a guy who's now smashed 2 weeks in a row, Michael Pittman. It's pretty clear he's the number 1 receiver in Indy now. That passing game is getting going. I know it was all about the running game. They were run first, run the damn ball, and you know what? Now they're starting to pass the ball quite a bit. Phillip Rivers is coming on, and Pittman is the number 1 guy. And he gets a rematch now of Tennessee, which 2 weeks ago was his first and only 100-yard game where he really kind of broke out. And so it's possible he does the same thing. But even if he doesn't, you'll see that this is the lead receiver for a pretty good offensive team that, again, the next few weeks, the last few weeks of the season could definitely help you out. So pick up Pittman if he's still available at all. That does it for wide receivers. If you need help at other positions, keep in mind we do this for running backs, quarterbacks, and tight end. Here to help you win. Good luck in week 12, and thanks as always for watching.